Welcome to Fables Untold, where we unlock hidden growth stories from across the world. I'm your host Vikas, and together we're diving into a world of insights and strategies to fuel your success. Today we kick off this thrilling adventure with a true B2B marketing maestro, the one and only George. If you're familiar with this B2B Playbook podcast, you already know the powerhouse we have in store for you. Welcome to the show, George. Super excited to have you with us.
Oh, Maestro, thank you, Vikas. That's a very nice introduction. I'm gonna send that to my dad. Thank you. I appreciate it.
I'd love for it if he watches this episode in the first place, George.
I know. I'll send it on to him.
Let's start with a quick introduction. I'm sure our audience would love to know more about you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the co-host of the B2B Playbook podcast, which is the podcast where I, along with my business partner, Kevin Chen, we're trying to share our demand gen framework, the 5Bs framework, and we detail it step by step over 100 episodes. So we literally planned out the first 100 episodes before we even started. I think we're almost up to episode 90, so we're nearly towards the end. And so we're absolutely on a mission to detail that framework to help marketers in small B2B teams all around the world.
Wow, that's a lot of planning, I must say. But before that, I'm sure that I'm not the first person to ask you this. But George, spill the beans for us, right? How did you make the leap from the world of law to this entirely new globe and new world of B2B marketing, totally unrelated to each other?
Yeah, look, the planning superpowers probably came from the law background. It's maybe the only thing I took with me. To be honest, I fell in love with marketing well before I was a lawyer. I just got into SEO while I was at university. I didn't study it, but a friend showed it to me and I just became fascinated with it. And I actually got so into it that I ranked a few little Amazon affiliate sites, which made a little bit of money, not that much, but I was absolutely hooked on the fact that within such a short period of time with really very little experience in this digital world, you could have a real impact on a business. And I was just infatuated with it. But, got a good corporate law job, ethnic parents, had to do it. And fortunately, just did something that I hated enough, to be honest, that it made me want to leave and go and do what I want to do. So I took 3 weeks of leave in my law job after working 80, 90-hour weeks. And I had the one objective of finding a job in a marketing agency to learn as much as I could. And I ended up finding an awesome agency. It was at 15 people when I started. It was at 80 people when I left. It was an absolute rocket ship. We had a lot of experience very, very quickly. And it was there that I met my business partner and dear friend, Kevin Chen, who was also a former corporate lawyer.
Wow, that sounds super interesting. Where two corporate lawyers met at an agency and then they've started this super interesting, I must say.
Yeah, look, probably the most interesting thing we've done. Normally, corporate lawyers aren't overly interesting, I'd say.
Oh yeah, I agree with that. But then glad that you guys started off with B2B marketing. And then the signature move of yours, George, the 5Bs framework that you talk about very highly. Would love to know what that is exactly and how can our viewers use it?
Yeah, definitely. Look, it came about because when I really niched down in B2B marketing, I just didn't find that there was a resource out there like this. So while I was trying to figure it out for myself, I found myself, looking to blogs like HubSpot's blog. I found myself reading books by a whole lot of people. And I found myself being mentored by different thought leaders. And basically, there was just this strategy and tactics all over the place. And I didn't know what I should use and when I should use it. And once we figured it out for ourselves and once we tested what worked on clients, we used our legal organizational powers as former lawyers to package it up as something called the 5Bs framework, which is really a series of 5 major steps that any business should go through if they want to create a demand engine for their brand, for their company. Would you like me to go through each of the 5Bs framework at a high level, Vickers?
Absolutely. In fact, that was one of my next questions. Would love for it, to share some more details about.
Awesome. Well, look, as I said, our 5Bs framework is really our framework for demand generation. I think that it focuses more on the demand creation side. The first B of the 5Bs framework is what we call be ready. And that's about very deeply understanding your customers. It's about putting those foundations in place for the rest of your marketing. So you've got to do things like understand who your best customers are, understand by interviewing your customers exactly what drives them, what their needs are, what their pains are. We've got to map out their sources of influence, map the buying journey, find out where it is that they're hanging online. So we have that really, really deep understanding of them. That is the first B, and that's one that so many people miss. Now, the second one is be helpful. And be helpful is really about developing relationships with helpful and educational content. So again, that comes back to making sure that you understand those dream customers and what motivates them. And it's about creating helpful content that educates and entertains them. It's exactly what we try and do every week with the B2B Playbook podcast. That's how we get people to the B2B Incubator, is for educating, entertaining. And what it does is it builds relationships with people. The third B is what we call be seen. And that's now we've got these foundations in place. We understand our customers. We're helping them. How do we amplify that? And that's where paid media comes in. And that's what we talk about in Be Seen, is how to really amplify all that helpful content that's still developing relationships and turbocharge it using paid media. We also teach businesses how they can actually narrow their focus and refine their approach with account-based marketing, something that's a little bit more advanced. The fourth B, be better. That's about really optimizing your workflow now that you have those fundamentals in place. So again, those first three Bs, they're the non-negotiable fundamentals that every business needs in place. And then you get to the fourth B, be better. We're looking at now those 2, 3, 5%ers that are going to start to improve your marketing. So we talk about things like A/B testing, conversion rate optimization, advanced content repurposing, email nurturing, leveraging CRM, CDPs, etc. Then the fifth B, the final B, the one that we're almost up to in our podcast, is what we call be the best. And that's where we look at advanced tactics that are normally left to the big guys with the big budget. So we're going to dive into how small marketing teams can use things like neuroscience and psychology to really win over their dream customers. So that's the 5 Bs framework.
Wow. Sounds like a pretty elaborate framework that has come through after a lot of research.
Yeah, look, it definitely has. It really came from when we sat down and we just we really just mapped out everything that had worked for us with our clients, with the people that we'd worked with all these different strategies and tactics that we'd seen out there. And we just thought about, how can we map this out so a marketer knows what to do when in order, because that was the big missing piece for us.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that particular framework. I'm sure that a lot of our viewers will benefit from it. Moving on to our next set of questions, George. I mean, today in marketing, there are a ton of tools today, right? I mean, a lot of tools, especially in the B2B GTM side of things in sales and marketing, right? So out of those that are available, are there any that you swear by and you recommend to a lot of people that you speak with?
Yeah, I run pretty lean. We run really lean and our clients run really lean too. That's probably a symptom of us working with mostly smaller B2B marketing teams. But honestly, I think sometimes when you have more platforms, you have more problems. So just starting off with Clearbit's free weekly visitor report to tell you which traffic from which companies is landing on your website is a huge unlock for so many businesses. So if anyone listening hasn't got that installed, go and get the Clearbit free weekly visitor report and you can start to see which companies are on your website. Also installing LinkedIn Campaign Manager, putting their pixel on your site, you can get a lot of good firmographic information on the companies visiting your website and interacting with your ads or interacting with your organic material there if you're on LinkedIn. Google Ads, I guess it's more a channel. Yes. But look, it can be a great place to start, especially if you're entering an established market. Not as great when you're trying to create demand from scratch. So they're probably some places that I'd really like to start. And then just in terms of organizing everything, having one central source of truth, one place with all the data, I just use HubSpot.
Wow. Like you said, super lean, but at the same time, it's not missing out on any important information. So looks like a pretty good recommendation there.
Yeah, that's right. And at any point, once we need to scale up those operations, you can start moving to the paid tiers of those tools. So if you start needing more real-time information about when people are visiting your website, then you can upgrade from Clearbit's free weekly visitor report to their entry tier.
Absolutely. You mentioned, a couple of minutes earlier that you typically help businesses very early in their stages, right? So now that you've helped quite a few of them crack the demand gen motion, what are some of the common mistakes you see people making?
Yeah, I think they miss those fundamental first three Bs that we talk about in the five Bs framework. So they really miss that
Hmm.
deep understanding of their customer. They don't take the time to interview their dream customers to really understand who
Hmm.
exactly is that buying committee? Who is it that we need to win over? Who do we need to develop relationships with? So many miss that. And I was guilty of this when I was a performance marketer. We have that whole test and learn approach. Everyone says marketers, the best marketers are always testing and learning. So what do? We go into Google Analytics, we try and make up some stories about activity that we start seeing, we run some hypotheses, and then we use ad budget to just test a whole bunch of creative and messaging. More often than not, it falls flat on its ass because what we should have done is we should have started with the customer. We should have spoken to the
Yeah.
customer. We can ask them directly. And then the starting point should actually be pretty close to the finishing point, and we should be testing and learning on top of that. So that's a huge mistake that I see people make. And then probably one of the greatest pain points, and one that I'm constantly trying to talk to, is people not thinking about creating demand before it's too late. So early stage organizations, as I said, Google Ads is a great place to start capturing demand. But the reality is there's only 3% of people out of your total market
Yeah.
who are ready to buy right now. And companies start running Google Ads, they're operating in that 3%, and they have more and more aggressive growth targets. They keep trying to scale up in it, but guess what? As they scale up, so are their competitors. Their cost per click go up, their cost per acquisition goes up, not down, and then they start not being able to afford to get more of that 3% market share. Instead, they need to focus earlier on the other 97% of people who aren't yet ready to buy and building affinity with them. It's, in my opinion, it's really the only way that businesses can sustainably scale. I'm not saying to throw all your budget into it from the beginning. I'm just saying start to dedicate 10, 20% of your time into looking at creating demand before it's too late.
Wow. Yeah, I think that's absolutely important because, like you mentioned, right? I mean, a lot of SaaS folks that I've spoken to talk about optimizing their ad budgets, talk about improving the conversions, talk about improving the copy. Can we put in a better image there? Can we sort of trim the text? Can we use a catchy phrase, something that's clickbaity, and then my website or landing page is going to take care of the rest? But then the key that a lot of them are missing, like you said, is that at the end of the day, they're only targeting the 3 or 4%. And there's 90 odd percent sitting out there who have absolutely no idea about what you or your product does.
And
I
I'll
think
just
that's pretty interesting. I mean, is this. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to add to that and say so many marketers obsessed with those little changes, those little A/B testing little bits of
Yeah.
copy, testing if we put a button here, change this image here. The reality is they might get you 3, 4, 5% improvements if you're lucky. But an early stage company needs to be making much bigger swings than that. If you're
Hmm.
optimizing 3, 4, 5% of something really small, then that's not a very big overall improvement. So the big insights, the big wins come from really, truly aligning with that customer, from deeply understanding them and doing those basics really, really well. My apologies, I interrupted you.
No, no, absolutely spot on, right? I mean, this is not just interesting for our viewers, but also for me, given that where we are in our Fable journey as an early stage SaaS startup, right? So, I think you're right. We sort of try to poke our heads on top of the little optimization, saying that what, last week this was what our conversions look like. How can we improve today? But then we're so caught up in our short-term goals that we really forget as to why we're there in it for the long term. So I think this is a wake-up call, not just for our viewers, but also for me to take care of things going
and that and
forward.
that's
Awesome.
and that's why, Vikas, I think it's so important that businesses have a plan for demand creation, whether they execute it all at once or not. I don't think they should. I think they should have the plan
Hmm.
there, and it should just be something that they chip away at. As they get more time, as they get more resources, as they get more budget, they can keep executing it. You don't need to go from 0 to 100 with demand creation, but it's really important to have that strategy in place and just execute with the time that you have. You don't have to dedicate 100% of the time, but you've got to just start chipping away slowly, because I've been there. I've been the performance marketer that didn't focus on demand creation, only on capture, and I got caught with my pants down, and it wasn't fun.
Oh man, yeah, I think that's extremely critical feedback, and I'm sure that a lot of us will take this away from us. So, this is super super interesting, and thank you for answering these questions, George. So, would love to quickly jump in to a rapid fire section where we'd be asking super simple 5 questions, and then would love to know what comes to the top of the mind for you. Should we get started with that?
Yeah, let's jump in.
All right, so here it goes, right? So, are there any other B2B marketers that you really admire and look up to? I mean, would love to know who they are and what do you find really inspiring about them?
Oh yeah, definitely. One that comes to mind is Ryan Gibson. Ryan Gibson is in
Uh-huh.
customer research, customer interviews, and he's helped me out with some collaborations. And he's really taught me so much about how to interview customers properly to really extract real insights. And that was a piece of my marketing that was missing for so long. So I really, really admire him. I'll add to that. Can I add a few more, or is this a quick rapid fire round? Do I need to just shut
Oh,
my mouth now?
absolutely. Oh no. I'm sure that our viewers would love to know as many as you would want.
I'll add to that. Jess Cook, she's an incredible content marketer. I follow her all the time. She's also helping me out with the collaboration. She helped redesign our landing page and do our copywriting for the B2B Incubator. She's an absolute whiz. Justin Rowe is a LinkedIn ads guru. Love following him. He's absolutely fantastic. There's so many people. So the only guests that we have on the B2B Playbook are people that I've just followed for a really long time and have wanted to learn from. Never ever have I had someone reach out to me and want to be on the podcast and me said yes, because I'm literally just having on the people that I really want to have on, because we rarely have guest spots. So too many to mention. People, go and look at who we've interviewed on the B2B Playbook.
Thank you. Thank you for that list, George. I'm sure that right after we record this, I'm going to write to all of these folks and request them to come on our podcast as well.
Yeah, you absolutely should. They're terrific.
Awesome, right? I mean, all of us, have hidden talents. I'm sure that, there's something about you that most of us don't know. I mean, would love to know what your hidden talents are.
Yeah, if I have any kind of talent, I taught myself the piano at 13. So
Wow.
I jumped on, and I don't read sheet music, but I just started to learn to play by ear. So I still play today. I guess all this time later really relaxes me. Love it. Definitely hit a limit in terms of how good I got. But hey, I do it for me, not for anyone else.
Well, if that's the case, I think I did it right when I started by introducing you as a maestro.
Yeah. That's great. What about you? What would your hidden talent be?
Well, I'm good at eating, I'd say.
What's your
Oh,
what would be your death row dish? The dish on your final night on Earth. What would that be?
Oh man, I think I'd love to gorge on desserts. I mean, I was a sportsman when I was in school, and I was forced to be super fit to make sure that I play my sports. And then right out of college, I realized that I'd either have to pick up sports or pick up education. At least that's how India is, where you sort of pick one direction, where you don't really have the option to choose both. And I don't know why I ditched the sports side of things. And then the moment I left sports, I've started eating a lot. So when people ask me, Vikas, what is that one pastime that you'd love? You know what, dude, I love to eat.
Look, again,
So
as I
wherever
said,
I go, I search for new cuisines. That's my thing.
as someone who, again, ethnic background, I'm Greek, if you couldn't tell from my very long last name, love to eat too.
Yeah.
I share that passion.
Awesome, man. I mean, I think would be also, lovely to know, a bunch of other things, right? So there are a lot of other great podcasts out there, right? So which one is your absolute favorite? I'm sure you're going to talk to me about the B2B Playbook podcast, but we're not going to count that.
No, absolutely not. Look, the Tim Ferriss show is my absolute favorite. It's probably the same for a lot of people out there. I just love how
Yeah.
Tim is just so curious and raw and open and honest. I find that all the guests that he has on, they're all so extraordinary. But I feel like every interview that he does with them really actually tends to humanize them. And then you start by the end to start to see them as these people who were ordinary, but really went that extra mile to become extraordinary. And I just think that's really cool because it goes to show that if anyone's going to put the time in, put the effort in, make some sacrifices, that, hey, it could happen to anyone.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I think that's super interesting, and thanks for sharing that. Right. There's a lot going on in the world of B2B marketing right now, George. Is there something that you're truly excited about in that particular world, and why do you think so?
Yeah, I would say AI helping us marketers in small teams punch just way above our weight. I think if we do it with a
Hmm.
human first approach, where we still keep the humans at the top of that content creation process. So, for example, for us, the beginning of our content creation process is still Kevin and I speaking with each other with the B2B Playbook podcast, but then using AI to help us get a head start and repurposing that into articles, blogs, emails, show notes, YouTube videos, all that kind of stuff. That's where it really, really helps us. I think it gives us a huge advantage to run lean. And I feel like lean teams tend to have better communication with
Yeah.
the other divisions in a company. So sales, leadership. I would say the other side to that is I'm also really excited for personal brands to keep becoming more and more important. I think as AI continues to evolve, that how-to information becomes very commoditized. Everyone has the same information. Everyone has the same ability to put out similar insights. I think as
Yeah.
humans, we just go back to we've got to have a face and a person that we trust. And I think that's where personal brands is really going to flourish.
Absolutely. I think you're right when you mentioned that lean teams are the next big deal, especially how you look at AI. I've already seen a lot of teams talk about AI being their true member of their GTM team, and you don't really have to wait to put out a job posting, get a new guy on board, and ask them to do such stuff. If you have a very tight knit process, AI is a bunch of team members that can work with you and help you go in the long run, right? So super looking forward to how that story pans out, and let's see what's there in that for the future of B2B marketing. Awesome. Then I have one last question in this rapid fire, George. So if you could go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice when you were just starting out in B2B marketing, what do you think that would be and why?
Yeah, look, when I first started out in marketing, I thought I was the king of marketing. I thought that I could just keep putting $1 in and getting $2 out as a performance marketer. I thought that it would scale to infinity, to the moon. I would say, George, just slow down, read as much as you can about traditional marketing principles, go through the greats like Ogilvy, the fundamentals, the principles there still ring so true. And to a large extent, demand generation is really just a rebrand of those fundamental principles of marketing. So go back, do your homework, read it from the beginning.
Awesome. I think that was super helpful, right? So that was fun. Thanks, George, for making our debut episode an absolute blast. So, folks, that's a wrap. Until next time, this is Fables Untold with you folks. I'm Vikas. Thank you for joining us. And remember that your growth story is just beginning.